Book 3, Chapter 2 of The Food of the Gods and How It Came to Earth. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Alex C. Talander, Davis, California. The Food of the Gods and How It Came to Earth by H. G. Wells. Book 3, Chapter 2 The Giant Lovers. 1. Now it chanced in the days when Catahan was campaigning against the Boom children before the general elections, that was, amidst the most tragic and terrible circumstances, to bring him into power, that the giant princess, that serene highness whose early nutrition had played so great a part in the brilliant career of Dr. Winkles, had come from the kingdom of her father to England, on an occasion that was deemed important. She was affianced for reasons of state to a certain prince, and the wedding was to be made an event of international significance. There had arisen mysterious delays. Rumour and imagination collaborated in the story, and many things were said. There were suggestions of a recalcitrant prince, who declared he would not be made to look like a fool, at least to this extent. People sympathized with him. That is the most significant aspect of the affair. Now it may seem a strange thing, but it is a fact that the giant princess, when she came to England, knew of no other giants whatever. She had lived in a world where tact is almost a passion and reservations the air of one's life. They had kept the thing from her. They had hedged her about from sight or suspicion of any gigantic form, until her appointed coming to England was due. Until she met young Wedgwood she had no inkling that there was such a thing as another giant in the world. In the kingdom of the father of the princess there were wild wastes of upland and mountains where she had been accustomed to roam freely. She loved the sunrise and the sunset, and all the great drama of the open heavens more than anything else in the world. But among a people at once so democratic and so vehemently loyal as the English, her freedom was much restricted. People came in breaks, in excursion trains, in organized multitudes to see her. They would cycle long distances to stare at her, and it was necessary to rise betimes if she would walk in peace. It was still near the dawn that morning when young Wedgwood came upon her. The great park near the palace where she lodged stretched, for a score of miles and more, west and south of the western palace gates. The chestnut trees of its avenues reached high above her head. Each one as she passed it seemed to proffer a more abundant wealth of blossom. For a time she was content with sight and scent, but at last she was won over by these offers, and set herself so busily to choose and pick that she did not perceive young Wedgwood until he was close upon her. She moved among the chestnut trees, with the destined lover drawing near to her, unanticipated, unsuspected. She thrust her hands in among the branches, breaking them and gathering them. She was alone in the world. Then she looked up, and in that moment she was mated. We must needs put our imaginations to his stature to see the beauty he saw. That unapproachable greatness that prevents our immediate sympathy with her did not exist for him. There she stood, a gracious girl, the first created being that had ever seemed a mate for him, light and slender, lightly clad, the fresh breeze of the dawn moulding the subtly folding robe upon her against the soft strong lines of her form, and with a great mass of blossoming chestnut branches in her hands. The collar of her robe opened to show the whiteness of her neck, and a soft shadowed roundness that passed out of sight towards her shoulders. The breeze had stolen a strand or so of her hair, and strained its red-tipped brown across her cheek. Her eyes were open blue, and her lips rested always in the promise of a smile, as she reached among the branches. She turned upon him with a start, saw him, and for a space they regarded one another. For her the sight of him was so amazing, so incredible, as to be, for some moments at least, terrible. He came to her with the shock of a supernatural apparition. He broke all the established law of her world. He was a youth of 21 then, slenderly built, with his father's darkness and his father's gravity. He was clad in a sober, soft brown leather, close-fitting, easy garments, and in brown hose that shaped him bravely. His head was uncovered on all weathers. They stood regarding one another, she incredulously amazed, and he with his heart beating fast. It was a moment without a prelude, the cardinal meaning of their lives. For him there was less surprise. He had been seeking her, and yet his heart beat fast. He came towards her, slowly, with his eyes upon her face. "You are the princess," he said. "My father has told me. You are the princess who was given the food of the gods." "I am the princess, yes," she said, with eyes of wonder. "But what are you?" "I am the son of the man who made the food of the gods." "The food of the gods?" "Yes, the food of the gods." "But—" Her face expressed infinite perplexity. "What? I don't understand. The food of the gods? You have not heard? The food of the gods? No." She found herself trembling violently. The colour left her face. "I did not know," she said. "Do you mean—" He waited for her. "Do you mean there are other giants?" He repeated, "Did you not know?" And she answered, with the growing amazement of realization, "No!" The whole world and all the meaning of the world was charging for her. A branch of chestnut slipped from her hand. "Do you mean to say," she repeated stupidly, "that there are other giants in the world? That some food—" He caught her amazement. "You know nothing!" he cried. "You have never heard of us, you whom the food has made a king to us!" There was terror still in the eyes that stared at him. Her hand rose towards her throat and fell again. She whispered, "No." It seemed to her that she must weep or faint, that in a moment she had rule over herself, and she was speaking and thinking clearly. "All this has been kept from me," she said. "It is like a dream. I have dreamt such things, but waking, no. Tell me, what are you? What is the food of the gods? Tell me slowly and clearly. Why have they kept it from me, that I am not alone?" 2. "Tell me," she said, and young Wedwood, tremulous and excited, set himself to tell her. It was poor and broken telling for a time, of the food of the gods and the giant children who were scattered over the world. You must figure them both, flushed and startled in their breathing, getting at one another's meaning through endless half-heard, half-spoken phrases, repeating, making perplexing breaks and new departures, a wonderful talk, in which she awakened from the ignorance of all her life. And very slowly it became clear to her that she was no exception to the order of mankind, but one of a scattered brotherhood, who had all eaten the food and grown for ever out of the little limits of the folk beneath their feet. Young Woodward spoke of his father, of Coster, of the brothers scattered throughout the country, of the great dawn of wider meaning that had come at last into the history of the world. "We are in the beginning of a beginning," he said. "This world of theirs is only the prelude to the world the food will make. My father believes, and I also believe, that a time will come when littleness will have passed altogether out of the world of man, when giants shall go freely about this earth, their earth, doing continually greater and more splendid things. But that is to come. We are not even the first generation of that. We are the first experiments." "And of these things," she said, "I knew nothing." "There are times when it seems to me almost as if we had come too soon. Some one, I suppose, had to come first. But the world was all unprepared for our coming and for the coming of all the lesser great things that drew their greatness from the food. There have been blunders. There have been conflicts. The little people hate our kind. They are hard towards us because they are so little, and because our feet are heavy on the things that make their lives. But at any rate, they hate us now. They will have none of us. Only if we could shrink back to the common size of them would they begin to forgive. They are happy in houses that are prison cells to us. Their cities are too small for us. We go in misery along their narrow ways. We cannot worship in their churches. We see over their walls and over their protections. We look inadvertently into their upper windows. We look over their customs. Their laws are no more than a net about our feet. Every time we stumble we hear them shouting. Every time we blunder against their limits or stretch out to any spacious act. Our easy paces are wild flights to them, and all they deem great and wonderful no more than Dole's pyramids to us. Their pettiness of method and appliance and imagination hampers and defeats our powers. There are no machines to the power of our hands, no helps to fit our needs. They hold our greatness in servitude by 1,000 invisible bands. We are stronger, man for man, 100 times, but we are disarmed. Our very greatness makes us debtors. They claim the land we stand upon. They tax our ampler need of food and shelter. And for all these things we must toil with the tools these dwarfs can make us, and to satisfy their dwarfish fancies. They pen us in every way. Even to live one must cross their boundaries. Even to meet you here today I have passed a limit. All that is reasonable and desirable in life they make out of bounds for us. We may not go into the towns. We may not cross the bridges. We may not step on their ploughed fields or into the harbours of the game they kill. I am cut off now from all our brethren except the 3 sons of Coster, and even that way the passage narrows day by day. One could think they sought occasion against us to do some more evil thing." "But we are strong," she said. "We should be strong, yes. We feel, all of us, you too, I know, must feel, that we have power, power to do great things, power insurgent in us. But before we can do anything—" He flung out a hand that seemed to sweep away a world. "Though I thought I was alone in the world," she said, after a pause, "I have thought of these things. They have taught me always that strength was almost a sin, that it was better to be little than great, that all true religion was to shelter the weak and little, encourage the weak and little, help them to multiply, until at last they crawled over one another to sacrifice all our strength in their cause. But always I have doubted the thing they taught. This life," he said, "these bodies of ours, are not for dying. No, nor to live in futility. But if we would not do that, it is already plain to all our brethren